Don't misunderstand, it's not that modes of conduct don't need to be agreed upon, but at every stoplight, how many people need to hit their brakes at the same time and hold them? And if one person lets off, their car lurches forward, and we know what happens. In 2003, the city of Drachten, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, in northern Holland removed almost all of its traffic signs and stoplights, and the result has been a marked decline in accidents. At stoplights, you don't see people routinely shirking them. If some anarchist proposed stoplights where there had never been stoplights, a statist might ask, well, what will prevent individuals from all just driving as they please with no regards to the stoplights? Granted, there is the occasional special driver who believes the rules of traffic don't apply to him, and he is dealt with by the marginal state, or the policeman. But the police are indeed marginal. The primary means of maintaining order is the intersubjective consensus of the traffic rules. This is something that just happens. When people go out and drive, they don't even think about it. I certainly don't. And this is why the experiment in Drachten was such a success. Hans Monderman, the designer of the road layout, understood that the primary governance of traffic behavior is not signs and lights, though those will be obeyed if they're there and they are agreed to be valid, but the intersubjective consensus, though he probably wouldn't put it in such terms. That is the government. The intersubjective consensus in relation to various institutions is what governs behavior. Now, this is very ambiguous, and I think it has to be. It would be impossible to list apodictically all of the things which govern your behavior. The state can be a part of that which governs behavior. Today, the state has become government to a large extent. The dictates of the state have been given governmental power. They are seen as legitimate by the intersubjective consensus. For example, traffic is governed by agreed-upon norms, but those norms are influenced by the state, which side of the road you drive on. Or another example would be a stop sign. The norm is to slow down as you approach the sign, look both ways, and then continue. But the state law is to come to a complete stop and then look both ways. This is an example of when the government is at odds with the state. A better example would be prohibition and the war on drugs. This is when the state is in conflict with the rest of government. Typically, the state doesn't make things up willy-nilly. For example, mail does need to be delivered. There is a market demand for mail, and for the longest time, the state granted itself a monopoly on mail delivery. The state typically doesn't fabricate services out of whole cloth. It tends to monopolize pre-existing services or cater to pre-existing market demand. Education, mail, roads, communication, defense, law, the command posts of society. The state is a virus that infects government. Of course, the state-infected government is far more inefficient than healthy government, but the state-infected government, through taxation, has rendered itself free to use, and this is a very key concept. See video in the description if you are inclined. This is a semantic shift that I am not making precipitously. I looked up the Wikipedia definition and a bunch of other dictionary definitions, and in my discussions with various people, they all argue that there always has to be something to maintain order, and a hierarchy, preferably a meritocratic one. For a while, I have been careful not to criticize government, but to criticize the state. The anarchist, then, is not necessarily against all government, though he can be. The crazy Marxist anarchists who are against all hierarchy can truly claim to be against government per se. But people who call themselves market anarchists, anarcho-capitalists, and mutualists/agorists, not that any of those titles are exclusive, are not against all government, just the state. By conflating the terms government and state, the anti-state position is made to appear unreasonable on its face. By separating the two, you open the debate and force the statist to defend the state on its own merits, not as the default.